friends, and welcome to the Paranatural Podcast. My name is Ben.
And I'm Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson? I'll get you a Twinkie later. He's Jake, and we are so glad to have you with us tonight for a very special Friendsgiving type of episode where we were joined by the boys from the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast to talk about Japan's kind of Bermuda Triangle, I guess? The Dragon's Triangle?
Or the Devil's Sea, the Devil's Triangle.
It's got a bunch of names to it. And
buttloads.
Yeah, buttloads and buttloads and buttloads. So, unless you got anything, Jacob, I think we'll just let the people hear that rambling bit of nonsense we did with the Blue Ribbon boys.
You know what? I do have something.
What do you got?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the continued support.
Yeah.
You guys are wonderful.
Always that.
Fucking love you.
Always that.
But that's it.
All right, then. Here you go.
All right. Well, thanks for getting on the call. Thanks for setting it up, Benny.
Hey, you know, that was a lot of Jake, actually, since I ADHD'd on this whole thing. He saved us in the end.
Yeah, I appreciate you hitting me up, Ben, or Jake. And it was good talking to you on the phone, too. Goofing off a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. It was fun the first time, so it'll be double the fun this time.
Oh, yeah. It's a little after Thanksgiving. That's okay. But a little Friendsgiving.
Yeah.
That's what I like to celebrate that. I hope you guys do something with your friends as also your family in between the time.
Well, this is what we're doing.
and you know what I say? There's nothing like a Friendsgiving without a Pabst Blue Ribbon. So that's what we're drinking today. I forgot to tell Davey to pick up something special, but I got the old standby all the time.
I've got Mr. Blueski.
Mr. Blueski
From Griffin Claw Brewing Company.
That's a really cool brewing company name.
Yeah, it's a Michigan Cherry Ale.
Oh, Michigan, like from where Ben's from.
And Jake.
Well, I'm from Michigan.
He's from Michigan, too.
Oh, well, that's true. I always forget about that.
Yeah, we're mitten boys.
And we're doing the Dragon's Triangle.
The Dragons, a.k.a. the Devil's Sea.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Mononami, I think it's also called.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Japanese.
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 That's Japanese.
Something like that.
There's
Japanese
that anime language.
What is it? The Evil Sea?
It's got a lot of names.
Yeah, I even read stories of like people from Russia being down there and maybe even a German guy. There's all sorts of activity in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. U.S. has some happenings there as well.
Yeah. So the triangle is just south of the coast of Tokyo, over to the Philippines, and then over to the Marianas Trench, which has got a lot of crazy stuff. We did an episode on that, and it was pretty cool too. So, I mean, it's kind of got all the highlights of a good weird place.
Yeah, they say it's even stranger than the Bermuda Triangle.
I felt like towards the end, I wasn't so much finding strange stuff, but like we did an episode on the Japanese tsunami, and it seems like that place is just spitting out tsunamis and typhoons left and right, knocking everybody out.
Yeah, I read a translation. Kamikaze. Did you know that's like the great winds or something, or like the glory winds?
The divine wind.
The divine winds, yeah.
Yeah, and that's from when Kublai Khan was trying to invade Japan.
Like 1261.
It's 12 something.
It was in the 13th century for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it sounded like he sent like 900 ships to go invade Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously back then the ships weren't built like they are today, but a bunch of them just got wiped out. though they still tried to attack Japan.
Yeah. It was a total of like 40,000 soldiers and 900 ships, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time they had like 900 ships, and they actually got to Japan and attacked, but they couldn't like get on to like get a foothold. And I think their general took an arrow to the face. So then they started to retreat, and when they were retreating, that's when the typhoon happened and wiped out most of their fleet, because a lot of the ships were Korean like fishing vessels that they just kind of modified to go farther out, and so they weren't really prepared for typhoon type weather, and it just devastated them.
And Mongolians are not well known for their seafaring war.
Yeah, you're going from the Great Plains over or the steppe.
Yeah, the steppe,
and then all of a sudden you're going right into the heart of where the tsunamis are getting farted out by old Mother Nature.
Yep. Good luck, guys.
Right.
But the weird part was that
go ahead.
When they attacked, it was typhoon season usually ends in October. They attacked in November. And got wiped out, which is why the Japanese like attributed it to divine intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where the triangle got its name. Is there was a lot of lore about dragons living under that water, which I thought was interesting. So a lot of it started with like seeing flashing lights and the water always being disrupted, and even like smoke or steam coming off of the water, and a lot of those would be kind of contributed to fire from a dragon. And the Japanese kind of believed it, and they thought that the dragon gods were the ones that wiped out the Mongolians, as well as, and I didn't get too far into this one, but China has some sort of lore about a dragon making his like palace under the water in that area, which is kind of interesting. We just talked about it being close to the Marianas Trench. So I wonder if there's some sort of like maybe they knew that it was extra deep there before having the sonars and the submarines and things like that.
It's possible. Not sure how they would have figured it out, but I'm not exactly a seafaring individual, so
But Kublai Khan actually attacked twice, and then the second time Japan was ready for him, and they were pretty much kicking their butt, and then they were like sending out little ships at night to jump onto the Mongols' boats and like attack them in their sleep and stuff, and we were just generally disrupting them. And then another typhoon came through and just devastated that fleet again, and that's when they're like, okay, this has to be like supernatural, because we got this like steel dome of dragon protection.
It was a stalemate for like 5 years, wasn't it?
Something like that, until the Mongols started breaking up in China and they just gave up.
I did hear, I didn't write it down, but I did hear a good story about a Japanese samurai who like woke up late to one of the first battle or whatever, and he was like pretty pissed about it. So he set up camp like as close to the shore as he could with, I'm assuming maybe he was like a lord would be there. And so him and his army set up their camp like right next to the shore, within like firing distance of like the arrows and stuff. And I would assume that the Mongolians were trying to shoot him, but he was just like standing there super defiant. It was hella epic sounding. And he took a boat out to just like one or two boats with just a couple of guys on them out to the Mongols' ships, and they found like the biggest, ornatest one. And when they got there, they were like, oh, it's such a small group of people coming out here, they're obviously going to surrender. And then the guy like jumped out and was like, and maybe that's where who was saying their leader got shot in the face with an arrow or whatever, their general. Maybe that's where that happened. But it was just a super sick samurai story.
Fucking samurais. Don't mess with samurais.
Hell no.
I mean, you say don't mess with Mongolians unless you're a samurai. Then you're good. You're good.
Well, Japan doesn't have a huge wall around it, so they were out of their element.
No, but it has a whole ocean. It works. It's pretty effective. They got dragons or something down there.
Right.
And speaking of like times long ago, did you guys check out this Yonaguni monument? It's like some sort of underwater temple or city. It's not necessarily in the Dragon's Triangle, but there's a string of islands between Taiwan and the Philippines. And it's kind of thought, a guy was scuba diving there in the 1980s, and he saw this like structure, and it was kind of weird looking at this structure. You're like, that's definitely man-made, but apparently some scientists were like, nah, it's made by ocean currents. But there were all sorts of right angles that looked like they were obviously cut, and even like carvings of animals and stuff into the rocks as like, art.
But that was ocean currents. Mm-hmm.
A bunch of scientists that do believe it's from an ancient civilization. They believe that there's a pyramid, a castle, roads, and a stadium that they can all see from like underwater images. It's 150 meters by 40 meters by 27 meters. I meant to translate that to English units, but I didn't. But that sounds pretty big. And then there's a bunch of glyphs that are like carved shapes and animals. They believe it's supposed to be like 6,000 years old, or even up to 12,000 years old, during like the last ice age, when all the water froze. It lowered the sea level, and so that string of islands would have actually been like a walkway. And then whatever reason the ice age ended, and then the water came back up and flooded it all.
Global warming.
That to me really speaks of like an Indian burial type energy. Ancient peoples leaving their civilization always has kooky stuff going on.
Yeah, it sure seems to.
Yeah, because I heard that some people were saying like because they use that, and then they say that Atlantis was actually over there.
Mm-hmm.
But for who was that, Socrates or Plato to write about it, I don't know how he would know what's going on the other side of a continent at that time.
Yeah, maybe there was more than one Atlantis.
Could have been.
Well, there's that like Limara or something that's supposed to be
Lemuria.
Lemuria, yeah.
Yep.
There was kind of like an Atlantis in the Indian Ocean, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They moved to Mount Shasta. That's the story.
Yeah, they have like 4 arms or something, and
They were like 7 feet tall.
yeah,
Of course.
Yeah, of course they were, because everything's 7 feet tall.
7 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
How is that beer there, Jake?
Gone. I need another.
Was it good? Did it taste good?
Fantastic.
Super blueberry or something?
Cherry.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cherry.
Michigan
it's-
cherry.
Michigan.
Yeah,
cherry.
Michigan. Traverse City is like the cherry capital of the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they definitely have some awesome cherry stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, these PBRs taste like turkey dinner.
I don't know about that. Did you guys hear anything about the Oosteroo Boon? I don't know if I said that right, but it translates to like hollow ship. And pretty much these fishermen went out and they saw this ship that they said looked like one of their incense burners,
Mm-hmm.
but it'd be like they're like a cone incense where it's like you put like a basket kind of thing on top of it to like disperse the smoke.
That was the lone lady sailor, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bunch of people
Yeah.
have seen it, but nobody can prove it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But they wrote it like it was 4 different accounts of it through history, but they were kind of like in these like magazine pamphlet kind of things. So yeah, they don't know if it's real or if it's just recycled stories from the past, like before the 1800s. But it was about a pale lady with red hair, and they brought her on shore into town, but she couldn't communicate with them because she didn't speak Japanese.
He was Irish.
Yeah,
Not a lot of redheads in Japanese waters back then.
No, they thought she might have been Russian or something. And the story is that she had a box that she wouldn't let anybody touch, and they said,
Phrasing.
okay, well,
Sounds like the women around here.
I mean,
well, okay, phrasing. And in that box was the head of her lover.
oof, oof.
But yeah, they said it was like something where she was like a princess and then dishonored the family, so they cut off her lover's head, stuck it in a box, and then shipped her out to sea. And then these fishermen just found her, and then one of the old timers was like, we've seen this before, push her back out to sea. So they just stuck her back in her little spaceship looking thing and shoved her back into the water.
Wow, that's rude.
Yeah, it's definitely known that women that come from the sea are definitely witches, right?
Well, and I'm not sure what time frame we're talking about, but at one point, in a lot of different cultures, redheads were seen as, either bad luck, witches, magical of some sort, and depending on that culture, would depend on whether or not you would want them around or wouldn't want them around. But they were seen to be supernatural.
Yeah, they don't have souls, right?
That's it. That's the story.
Did she have freckles? Because she might have owned a couple of souls.
Oh, yes. But a lot of like ancient alien people always point to that as like a UFO. But when I was looking into it, I didn't really hear a lot of UFO stuff around the triangle.
Yeah. Well, and I had heard that same story, but it was more like time traveling because they had posted about it a few times in different eras or whatever.
Okay.
So that was another thing that I had heard about that redheaded woman is she was a time traveler. The box was potentially how she traveled through time. That's why she wouldn't let anybody look in it.
Yeah, I was going to ask because a couple of the accounts I read, some were from like the 13th century, some were from like 18th century. Yeah, so.
Oh, shit. Are we recording this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm recording over here. I'll send you guys the files.
Like, halfway in. I've done that before, so.
Yep, nope, we're good.
We've done that too, Ben, haven't we?
Oh, yeah, a couple times.
But it was like the entire episode.
Uh-huh.
What were some interesting stuff you guys found?
So, go ahead.
You want to go ahead, Jake?
Okay. All the stuff that I found that like definitely piqued my interest were like World War II and later.
That was most of what I came across as well.
Yeah, I didn't have too much more before that. Like I said, I thought the interesting part was like how the ancient people would have seen these natural things like underwater volcano eruptions creating light and bubbles and smoke and like attributing it to a god. It's like the Celts believing that lightning was Thor striking his hammer. I never knew that about the culture, so it was nice to hear that.
Yeah, I did read quite a bit on volcanoes being to blame for certain of the natural phenomenons, along with like all the gale force typhoon winds. And yeah.
What were some of your earlier like World War II?
Okay. So there was a U.S.-Japanese battle right above the triangle. And this Japanese pilot, his name is Toshiaki Lang. He claims he saw, this was 1944. He claims he saw a huge sea monster. He said the serpent-like monster swam really fast, like to where he could catch a glimpse, a little bit more than a glimpse but he said it had two huge triangular wings to go through the water. And he said he thinks it was 150 feet long.
Yeah.
Sounds like a dragon.
That does sound a lot like a dragon.
It adds up. I'm telling you, dragons are real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They just moved underwater. That's why we can't find them.
Or if it's by the Mariana Trench, what was that? The Meg?
The
it's just like-
Megalodon.
yeah.
Call Jason Statham. We got a problem here.
Yeah, you can drop kick the whale. Yeah.
I heard one from where was it? 1944, December during World War II. Task Force 38, a U.S. Navy carrier battle group, were getting in formation. They'd just got done fighting, and they get into formation to start refueling. And at that same time, a typhoon starts forming and heading directly towards them. And as they start to pitch and roll, and the huge waves start rolling up to 120 mile per hour winds, the storm ends up capsizing 3 destroyers. It swept more than 200 planes off the ship of the decks of the ship, and started a bunch of fires below deck. Ended up killing 765 American sailors. And for a long period of time, it was like one of the biggest disasters of the Navy. You know, like the most people lost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Indianapolis would have been more than that or not, off the top of my head.
You said 762?
Yeah. I want to say it was like 1,000 on the Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think it was over 1,000.
Yeah. So for a long time, like before and after that, it was one of the biggest losses of Navy lives.
Mm-hmm. Ben, do you have one in the 40s?
In the 40s,
and we don't got to go in necessary chronological order.
The one that I found interesting, so a lot of the theories about the ships that go down and disappear is weather phenomenon, volcanic phenomenon, or methane gas bubbles, right? It's what they say. These ships just get sucked up and go down. One that I found interesting was in 1957, there was a plane carrying 60 people that took off from Wake Island and was headed to Tokyo, which is a 9-hour flight. So the first weird thing about this is that 8 hours in, this plane radios to the Tokyo airport and says, hey, everything's good. We're 2 hours out. We'll see you in a couple hours. So that's already an hour behind schedule for unknown reasons.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it starts to get weird. And then this plane just never showed up. So like everything was fine, and then it just disappeared. They have no idea where it went. To this day, we have no idea where it got to. I'll get your guys' opinion, but I don't see where volcanic activity under the surface of the ocean makes a plane disappear.
Yeah, like you said, the radioing like an hour, like radioing 10 hours later in a 9-hour flight.
Yeah,
that they'll be there in 2 more hours. What I did read about that was they had it was scheduled to take like 9.5 hours, and they had fuel for 13 hours.
Yeah, those planes would hold 13 hours of fuel. It was fully topped off.
Yeah, so at that time they would have been coasting in.
Yeah,
that would have been 13 hours even, which is like kind of a weird coincidence to be exactly that much gas, and they're saying that much time.
Right.
But yeah, then they disappeared.
So I found that one particularly fascinating.
Right.
There was...
Didn't they?
Go ahead.
Didn't they say that all their equipment was working correctly?
Yeah, everything was fine when they checked in their last time, and then they just never showed up, and nobody knows what happened to this plane full of people.
Yeah, I think almost, didn't they say that when they radioed in, didn't they almost say that all their equipment is functioning normally and it's good flying conditions?
Yeah.
Which is questionable.
The weather was great. All their stuff's working, and then they just disappear off the face of the earth.
And it was during the day that they radioed in, right?
Yeah. If I understand
daylight.
correctly, yes. It was daylight, beautiful weather, routine flight.
2:30 is when they radioed, and they would have landed at 5.
No Mayday, no nothing. Just never showed up.
Yeah. Well, before we did an episode on the Bermuda Triangle, and they were saying that methane gas being released can actually like cause like air pressures to change, and then you don't have the lift anymore, and so it could cause you to nose down like really rapidly. But I don't know if that happened. But they, like you said, they also didn't find anything.
What's the cruising altitude, Ben?
No idea. More than 10 feet. That's what I got for you.
It's a lot more than 10 feet.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good explanation. If they're 30,000 feet or something.
The entire methane gas causing ships to sink and all that is only theoretical. We've never actually witnessed it in nature. They've done experiments that show it's possible, but nobody has.
Well, and speaking of like the Bermuda Triangle, I did hear a lot of people saying that this was on the opposite side of the world. And if you hear that, it's just I think a figure of speech, because where if you were to draw a line straight through the center of the earth, where the Bermuda Triangle hits would be just west of Australia.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But this Dragon's Triangle is one of the help me out here, Dave.
Vial of vortices.
That's the one.
Ivan T. Sanderson.
One of the 12 vial vortices. I don't know if you guys had done anything on those.
I know a bit about them.
Yeah, so there's like 12 of them around the world. They're supposed to make essentially a perfect, I want to say icosahedron. That might be wrong.
Bless you.
And they were talking about these types of areas have excess like electromagnetic force, which to me makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty gullible now, but if you look at a flower and it's got the golden ratio, I don't see why bigger things can't have some sort of mathematical ties. There's so much math within nature and the universe. And the world spins like almost egg shape, or like kind of like a squished circle. So maybe that has something to do with like where it lands on opposite sides. Maybe if the world was a perfect sphere or something, they would be directly across from each other. And you're talking about, probably thousands of miles. That could be like a plus or minus 0.1%, but yeah, that the math of them kind of aligning in a certain way and being one of these 12 vial vortices, I thought that was pretty interesting, because you could think that your equipment's working just fine on a clear day, but actually you're heading like straight into the water. Because has there been, and maybe I'm making this up totally, have there been situations where pilots get kind of confused with where the water meets the sky, and it all looks kind of all white at one point, and it kind of messes them up?
That actually is something that does happen to pilots
I didn't research it, but
yeah, they've actually have had pilots that have been completely flying upside down without realizing it when they're flying over calm open seas, because the sky and the water look so much alike that you can flip totally upside down and fly. I don't know how you don't know you're upside down, but from what I understand, it's happened.
Gravity. But yeah, and we did the Loch Ness Monster episode, and there's so many things said around Loch Ness, and it's kind of a choppy, dark lake, and like this, seeing the sky and the water meet together. There's so many optical illusions. This plane that you were talking about had like 60 guys in it, so maybe it's a little less likely. But when you've been on a plane for 9 hours and you're ready to head home, your mind, your eyes start playing tricks on you.
And I think a lot of the situations where people have confused ocean for sky was before we had good altimeters, which tell you what your altitude is and, you know, things like that. I'm not saying it probably still doesn't happen, but it was back before we had such, you know, different instruments and things to help you fly, or in small planes that don't have that kind of stuff in it.
Right. Like the false horizon or whatever they call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I know there are some really cool optical illusions when you get around big bodies of water.
Yeah,
I stood near the shore of Lake Erie one time. I was getting gas and I looked down the street is Lake Erie. And the optical illusion, I can't remember the name for it, but it freaked me out a little bit because it actually looked like Lake Erie was rising above my position. So it looked like it was uphill to Lake Erie, which is absolutely not the case. But it looked like I was looking at a wall of water when I was standing on land. Crazy. And it's an optical illusion that happens when you get around large bodies of water.
And they have those ones where it looks like the boats are floating like 100 feet off the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As they get to the horizon or whatever, it kind of looks like they take off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Fata Morgana.
Bless you. I know it's been like there's a lot of planes that have gone missing in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think boats for sure take the cake on that one. 1952. 1952, September 24th. The Kaiomaru number 5, that one just went missing and nobody could ever find anything. It had 31 people aboard. No one ever heard anything. It just gone. And it says between 1952 and 1954, over 700 people went missing, but they just say lost their lives.
Okay.
Yeah, that Kaiomaru number 5, that had a little bit of like a fake news misinformation thing about it. Is from what I saw, there was somebody who had talked about it, and I believe other like Bermuda Triangle, Dragon's Triangle type events, and he said that there was like 100 people on that boat, and if they were specifically going out to try to find a lot of these other boats, and then Larry Cush, who was a librarian, released the book Mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle Revealed, and he found that it was actually 31 people on board of the Kaiomaru, and they were actually going to investigate or research underwater volcanic activities. And so that went missing, around that time. And was it that one that was like, I might be getting this mixed up with that British boat. But they did end up finding the Kaiomaru, and it had been sank by volcanic activity. It was going out to study volcanic activity, and they got sank by it.
Did you read the fun, definitely factual conclusion of the Kaiomaru?
No, I didn't miss that.
Mermaids.
Oh,
hell yeah!
Wait, what?
Death by Snoo Snoo?
Death by Snoo Snoo. That's right.
The mermaids.
Futurama.
The mermaids took out the whole boat. What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They attack the sea members by playing possum.
Men.
Yeah, and displaced the seamen and into the watery grave, and the boat succumbed to natural sinking reasons. But yeah, I don't know where they came across the conclusion that it was mermaids, but the mermaids, since they couldn't find any of the seamen, they had.
Now you guys did an episode on mermaids, right?
We did.
And outside of your reverse mermaid tomfoolery, was there like a lot of things that added up? It's been a while since I checked that one out, But was there a lot of things that like this is probably what happened, or was it storms or?
No, there was some, from what I remember, there was some really like what the hell could have happened other
Mm,
than mermaids.
yeah.
And then there's people washing ashore saying their story like they don't have anything to lose or they have everything to lose.
Mm,
And they're talking mermaids, they're talking that's why these boats went down, why all these people are missing. And at the point where you're on the brink of death, why lie?
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, cool.
But because of that, Caillou Maru #5, the Japanese government actually did outlaw travel through that area where it went down.
Mhm.
And everything I've heard, they've tried to make it sound like the whole triangle, but I think it's just the one part, like because they were like it's too volcanic over there. So
Yeah,
go
there are
around.
certain areas where the volcanic activity is so heavy that there's like a 3 mile section around some of these little islands and stuff that you're not allowed to go if you're a non-commercial ship, but if you're a commercial vessel, it's like a mile. But either way, yeah, there's certain areas that are illegal to travel in the triangle.
It's the Philippines and the corner by Tokyo, like just south of Tokyo. They were trying to ban that, but that's like the best place for ships to, and so people don't follow that rule.
Well, and I think that's what got that British ship, the
Mhm.
Derbyshire ship. Well, what did you guys find on that?
That it went down. It was like 80 miles off the shore, right? Or 60 miles.
Ooh, I just got like how far underwater it was for some reason. But yeah, it was so this Derbyshire. I don't know if it had like I wrote down ship, but it probably has some sort of fancy boat name after it. I don't know. So in the 1970s, Britain built 4 of these 91,000 ton and like 1,000 feet in length. They were like a dual purpose ship, built to carry oil and iron, because you would have boats built to carry oil, get to their destination, drop off the oil, and then have to come back empty handed. So to eliminate that waste of time, they built these dual purpose ships. This one particularly left Canada with a load of iron heading to Japan, and it was too big to go to like the Panama Canal or anything like that. So it went down the Horn of Africa, and it went through the Philippines, pretty much right to where you were saying that they tried to outlaw, but it's like the only route or something, or like the cheapest route.
Yeah.
And at that time, when they got near Japan, Typhoon Orchid began to form and head in their direction. And then on the 9th of December in 1980, the ship sent out a message that they were going to wait the storm out. And they were only like, a day away or whatever, like you were saying, not too far off the coast. And 4 days after that, they never showed up. I was getting that earlier one mixed up with this one. So after the 4 days, they sent out a search and rescue. All they found was a huge oil slick. 6 weeks later, they found a lifeboat. Like a ship found it like hundreds of miles away. And then 20 years later, and I don't know if this is like a technology thing or something, where they finally had underwater sonar, but they finally found the wreckage, and it was 2.5 miles underwater, spread out across a mile worth of seashore. And so the boat itself was built with like not the best water shields for like when a storm hits and you have all that crashing water. It had these oil tanks, and the water was just crashing in and filling up these oil tanks. And so it had a load of iron on it, and then it had a full load of water in these oil tanks. And it slowly just started to sink and started to break apart. I think it even like it was so overburdened and started sinking so much, like fires and explosions started happening in the hole, and that's what started to break the whole thing apart as it went under.
Yeah. So barges that size, nautical terms here, they go a top speed like 15 knots, which is just over 17 miles an hour. But I swear I read it that it was like 60 miles offshore. That's a little more than 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So realistically, did you find anything for radioing? Because I saw absolutely nothing on that.
Other than like when they were going into the storm, they radioed to be like, hey, we're at the tsunami. And so a tsunami is like, it's clear in the center, and then it kind of like spins around. So when you're boating, you want to enter it with the wind, I believe they were talking about. And so if you're on one side, you're going with it. If you're on the other side, you're going against it. And I can't remember exactly if they knew that they were on the wrong or the right side. But that was their plan, was to kind of go with it until it passed and then dead.
Yeah. Yeah. They say if you like bigger ships are the only ones who are even capable of combating Mother Nature in that sense. But if you enter at an angle with the wind, then it'll take you to the eye, and there you can wait it out better.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I didn't find anything radioing after or anything at all. But you said as soon as they were entering the storm.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me from what I had looked up. And like, yeah, talking about these ships in storms, between like, what was that crab show, Deadliest Catch,
yeah,
and like TikToks and stuff like that. Now, like you see a boat on some water, and it, god dang, it makes me think of a kid's toy boat in a bathtub. Those waves are huge, and it's just like throwing that. This one was 91,000 pounds, just throwing it around like a rag doll.
Yeah, so you're I looked it up because I do have better things to do, but I like to sound smart. Your average 1,000-foot vessel is going to be 70,000. So what they had is a big boat, especially way down with iron and oil.
Yeah, and it didn't have the oil in it. It was going to bring some back, probably from like Saudi Arabia or India or whatever. But with those poor water guards, the storm ripped off what little ones they had, and then the water just started dumping in and filling them up. So they're essentially carrying a double load after it started to fail.
And so they made cost-effective boats.
Decisions.
Yeah. Because I think there's 20 holes that is mandatory for it to brave the waters. And if this is just tearing it apart like that, then this is extremely cheaply made.
Yeah, it sounded like they were cutting a little bit of costs on the water shields, and the from what I saw, and now I don't know nothing about boats, but from what I had seen, most boats would have had like a way more robust water shield system. And so this was like lower technology than they had. And I think even now, after this happened, they put in place like sensors and whatnot to be able to tell when you're at like 25% capacity of water intake, and it's like a code red. So like they changed a lot of stuff on the ship like that.
I lived on a boat for 3 months, just off the coast of Florida. And we went through some like water spouts and stuff. And we had hail ripping holes in the isinglass, like baseball size.
Damn.
And like these boats, this was only a 40-foot, but they are not meant to go down. There was times that I was standing, just looking straight at the water, straight down, and you're fearing for your life, but you just kind of always pop back up how you're supposed to be.
Yeah, well, and that was one thing I did see about like tsunamis, and now again, I don't know if it was a tsunami or a typhoon, because a typhoon is a big wave.
Typhoon is like a tornado kind of in the
Yeah, a
water.
tsunami
Okay.
is a giant wave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because when you're out in the ocean, it's even a little bit better because the majority of the water or the majority of the energy is below the water, but it creates a bigger problem when it gets to land. But yeah.
Is their biggest issue is when the waves break, because you can have a 60-foot wave, but if it ain't breaking up at the top, then you're good.
Because the breaking is when it like rolls over onto you.
It'll roll you, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, because like I remember, you know what a dinghy is?
Well, hey, this is not that kind of podcast.
Okay. Nautical dinghy then?
Nautical dinghy.
Yeah, it's like a lifeboat.
Yeah, pretty
right?
much. Yeah, so I was on this boat for like 2 weeks straight, didn't get off, and needed cigarettes and beer. So it was some great big city in Florida, but I was looking at the weather, and the storm wasn't supposed to hit until like 6 p.m. and it was about
that day though.
Oh yeah, so it was about 11 p.m. Or 11 a.m. I took the dinghy to shore and found this awesome tavern. Had real cheap beer, like $3. I was drinking Yingling until I was feeling great. Got myself a pack of smokes, and I look at the weather again, and it said it was supposed to hit about 4. So it's about 1:30 at this point. I'm thinking I'm safe. So I go to leave, and I notice this light sprinkle. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to make it there pretty quick. And I walked about a mile off of the shore. I really wish I could remember the name of this city, but so as I'm walking back to the dinghy, rain hits so hard and I make it back to shore thanks for Google Maps, or I make it back to the dinghy, start up the motor, had to empty out the water, had to reinflate the dinghy, and I'm going out there not fast, and I'm just going in the direction that I remember I came from because it was raining so hard I couldn't see anything. So I'm going, and these waves are like coming up over the dinghy. I was getting a little bit scared, and I couldn't use my phone because of how hard it was raining. So I go to this one that kind of looked like our boat was called the Sequel. So I start climbing up the ladder, and I realize it is not my boat. So I get back down, start up the motor again, and the hail start getting pinged in the head by like dime-sized hail. So I'm like, man, this sucks. And I'm emptying water out while I'm going too. Finally find my boat, climb up there, hook it all up. And as soon as I step inside, I also had food. So I was grumpy because my food was ruined. I look at the isinglass right as soon as we close up the door and zip everything shut. This ball of hail, I kid you not, probably half-inch bigger than a 50-cent piece around, whizzes right through the isinglass. And me being dumb and a guy, I want to watch the storm. So I don't go down. And this hail is just hitting so hard, and it's like breaking the isinglass, tearing it. And I remember I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go up to the where you captain the boat from, like the controls and stuff, because they have better glass. And I look, I see a tornado.
Oh my God.
Water spout, tornado thing. Not once until the end of it did I think I was gonna die. But once it ended, and like we had to have been like 90 degrees with the water, just looking straight down at it. And after it all ended, we ended up on this. The tide was going out when the storm was happening. We were just sitting with our anchor torn. It broke the chains. We were sitting on this giant sand bed, sitting like this. Like, what do we do? So we waited like 8 hours for a tide to come back in, and whoop, back to normal.
Crazy.
Damn, wild.
Yeah, and that has so much to do with the Dragon's Triangle. But I can tell you.
Well, hey, you were down in Florida, dude. You could have been pretty close to the Bermuda.
Maybe. We didn't get too far off the shore. But it just some crazy storms. Like you'll see mangroves that are like 15, 20 foot above the water. 15 hours later, they're 10 feet below water. You can't see any of the trees or anything. It's crazy. I'm like,
that's wild.
Oh yeah. You can go onto the mangroves and you see these crabs like yay big. Everyone on the podcast, look at my fingers. They'll all be clinging to the tree. And just like for dear life, I guess.
Yeah, for everybody listening, it was hail-sized crabs is what it looked like to me. Everything is about the okay sign.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I use my middle finger, so it's not quite okay.
It's just all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
As tangential as that story seemed, that does go to prove that forces that are going to rip apart a shipping ship that is supposed to traverse very large sections of the ocean, that is a lot of force. If your little boat could withstand that much crap in a storm, what does it take to tear apart something made to survive anything?
Yeah, this was just a 40-foot trawler. The ones you guys were talking about, 1,000-foot barges, those are supposed to be like end of the world worthy.
Yeah.
Well, aren't there stories, is it Lake Erie, where like ocean going ships will just like get snapped in half in storms?
I know actually almost all of the Great Lakes have at least one.
Yeah, or which one's the biggest? Superior?
Yeah, Superior's really
biggest.
Bad. There's a bunch of
Deepest,
ships.
biggest.
There's a bunch of ships at the bottom of that lake.
The Edmund Fitzgerald?
Yep.
Is that Michigan?
Was that a country song?
I don't know if it's country. It's a song.
I think it's a folk song, I think, more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it is Superior, isn't it? The Edmund Fitzgerald?
Yes.
It's
Mark.
very superior.
Well, it was.
Not anymore.
Now it's fish housing.
I actually did find one alien story.
Yes.
And they call it an alien story, but it's kind of whatever you want it to be, I think. In that this Russian research vessel was down there, and I don't know if they were checking out the Marianas Trench or if it was the volcanic activity, but on August 18th, 1980, the Soviet vessel Vladimir Volbrov was researching off the coast of Japan. And the head research scientist, Professor Platonov, a lot of very good Russian names in this one. Hopefully I'm doing a good job saying them. But he said he was out taking watch duty at night when an unidentified object burst from the sea and circled the ship for several minutes, plunged back into the sea. He said that it was a cylindrical shape and was emitting a blinding blue light. And that cylindrical shape to me all made me think of like the Tic Tac, which is a classic UFO.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that one went into the water, but it was by water, I think.
Yeah, it was over the ocean.
Yeah.
I think
And I don't know if it went into the water or just zoomed off, but
depends on which one you're talking about. There've been a few.
okay.
Some
didn't
went
we do a
straight up,
story-
some went down, some went left, right. The Tic Tac thing is a whole episode on its own. But
didn't we do an episode where one kept popping out of the water?
you think I remember every episode we've done, bud?
Yes.
But
Well,
I
that's
got
why
to clear
keep Dave
space,
around.
man. Like, I got to clear
you're the
space
smart
after
one.
these things. But back to this story. So this one I did find extraordinarily fascinating because, alien guy. But he said it came up and circled him, emitted a bright blue light, like you said, and then went back below the waves. Oh, that's classic UFO stuff. UFO.
Yeah.
And what really, really caught my attention more than that, because I've heard 1,000 stories like that, was the fact that they said that was a volcano that shot something up from the bottom of the ocean hard enough to fly up in the air and then come back down. And I am calling BS on that whole explanation. You're going to tell me a volcano farted out a big enough rock that the
And then the
scientists...
methane gases made it circle the ship
Right,
for
and
several
glow.
minutes.
And glow blue.
Like, I could be fully behind it not being an alien and a natural explanation, but I'm not buying the volcano farted up a rock that hard.
Yeah, the blue glow, Jake, you're right. Like, it could have been something that shot up, circled the ship, and went back down, but also glowing blue. Like,
It was
you can have one, you can't have both.
Well, I imagine if it's methane, they're gonna say it caught fire from the heat from the volcano and burn hot enough it's gonna be blue.
It was a phosphorescent volcano turd. I don't think so.
Haven't you
swamp
watched-
gas?
Yeah, it
Swamp gas.
was a Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's what it is.
But yeah, I was actually surprised there wasn't more alien explanation surrounding the Dragon's Triangle. The Bermuda
Yeah,
Triangle
or-
has tons of it.
Yeah, or even like more dragon shit.
Right? Yeah, other than the old stories, we don't hear much about the dragons anymore.
Well, so I wanted to get into the mermaid stuff, but apparently you have to pay to subscribe to watch their stuff, and I ain't about to do that. So I found what mermaid stuff I could. Originally it was cryptids, and there was sea serpents, but literally every body of water, including the Great Lakes, has some sort of sea serpent, sea monster. Like Lake Michigan's got Bessie, which is Lake Michigan's version of Nessie.
Nice.
And so yeah, I looked up this little cryptid wiki about the Dragon's Triangle, and it's basically all sea serpents that look a lot like Nessie.
Okay.
But the only story that I found was that Toshiaki Lang, that sea serpent he saw 150 foot long. That was literally the only cryptid worthy stuff that I found.
They're
It's
not making
disappointing.
stories up enough hard enough.
I know.
Right? They
I
got to
know.
get better.
How do they expect us to keep this podcast going?
Get good, scrubs. Which is really weird, though, considering the fact that the Japanese in particular have a creature for like everything.
Yokai.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do a yokai episode.
We did 2 back to back.
Oh, really? I have to check those out.
Oh yeah, they were so ridiculous.
There's like an eyeball butthole one.
I didn't think we got there.
We did have one that was just ridiculous. What was it, Ben? It was had to do with an eyeball.
Oh, hell, I don't know.
It was like an eyeball with 8 legs, spider ball.
That might be familiar. I don't know.
What were the most recent episodes you guys done? I guess did you guys have any more on this Dragon's Triangle? I ran out of stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's just not there's a lot of stuff, but none of it makes sense.
Natural activity.
There's a lot of natural activity and some legend. Yeah. But even the natural activity just kind of strikes me as sure, there's ocean storms and things, right? Mm-hmm. We find wreckage from that. The ones that disappear, I don't know what's going on with those. And they say it's just volcanic activity and methane gas, but I don't know.
You guys did the Bermuda Triangle. Was it the Bermuda Triangle that the plane landed like 2 years late?
Was that a plane or was that the ship?
There's a plane one, but I think they were flying to New York or something. And then that one, I don't know if it's like a creepypasta, but they took off and then they had like a disturbance and they lost the plane. And then 2 years later, the plane shows up, but it just kind of taxis in and like everybody inside is like screaming or something. And they end up flying away because they're like, oh, we're in the wrong decade or whatever.
Yeah, you got to fly right to the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the Bermuda Triangle, a lot of it was like everything up the coast to like the Carolinas was attributed to the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is a lot the Dragon's Triangle too. I couldn't find anybody that can agree on the parameters of this thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're all close.
Yeah.
And
it's like it's a triangle because people need to make patterns out of things.
Right.
And that's what I think a lot of this is too, is there's a location where at one time a bunch of people were going missing because the people at the time didn't have the technology to either find them or understand the weather. Mm-hmm. And so people start calling it a thing.
So that was one interesting thing that I'll just mention is in this general vicinity, it was between 2007 and 2016, I think, where it was like 300 different ships went missing in that area. Some were found, some were not, but they are assumed to have gone down. That number is steadily declining year after year just across the world as our technology gets better and we have better tracking and better weather patterning and things like that. So that does speak to a lot of it just being natural phenomenon. And like you said, technology's improving, so we're losing more or less. But there are still people that are disappearing. Ships that still disappear. Planes still disappear. Yeah.
And it's almost a shame that like this kind of thing that maybe some people wouldn't accept being a technological difference, like it muddies the waters for real disappearances, for real information.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, and these two triangles also happen to be in really heavily traveled trade areas.
Oh yeah, extraordinarily heavily traveled routes.
Yeah. So of course there's going to be more missing or shipwrecks per capita.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, you're more likely to get into an accident in your car than in a plane. Well, it's because you drive in your car 3 times a day.
Right.
And you're in a plane once a month. Yeah, at a max.
So yeah, most likely it's attributed to natural and explainable phenomenon, but I'm sticking with aliens because that's what I do. So it's more fun.
The triangle thing bugs me. There's triangles for everything. There's a Lake Michigan triangle. Why can't we have like a gnome decagon?
Because nobody can spell that. We can all spell triangle.
Decagon?
Well, yeah. Maybe you got a thing there. What's the Illuminati logo? Triangle.
Son of a bitch. We just figured it out.
We're getting too close.
It's the Illuminatis and the aliens and the reptilians.
Yeah,
that's what's doing.
The government messed with our podcast when we were doing the interview with the demon. We're fucked now.
That's why you don't summon demons.
With Chick-fil-A sauce. That's the way to do it.
Chick-fil-A demon. The worst kind of demon.
Hey, Ben, are you hearing this?
Chick-fil-A sauce is delicious, and I will brook no arguments on the subject.
And cats come from hell.
Just that one.
Just that one.
The one sitting over there staring at me.
What was his name again?
Which one? The one
The
staring
cat.
at me? Fuck, I don't remember. Jacob, you know how my memory is.
Sir Thaddeus Bradwell the Seventh.
Something like that.
What we're gonna put this out to all of our 2 listeners, one being Dave,
Both
and
of
the
them.
other being his sister.
Yep.
but what episodes are you guys most interested in that you've done recently, so that some people can go back and listen?
That's a darling question. The Halloween one was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they were just talking about. They summoned a demon using Chick-fil-A sauce, and Jake got to interview him.
Okay,
Yeah, that one was funny.
writing it down.
We did
Ben's last episode. That was a lot of fun. The
Beast of
Granger Taylor.
Gévaudan. Oh, which one?
Huh?
No, that was Derek's.
Was it?
Yeah, Granger Taylor. That was
Yeah,
a
that
fun.
one was
That was
pretty
a
fun.
mystery story. If anybody's interested.
And then Gévaudan.
Yep, the Beast of Gévaudan, the Dulce Wars. We've done all those recently.
Dulce Wars was fun.
And what about
I
you
just-
guys? So for our
What was that?
listeners, what are you guys been getting into lately, so they can head over and listen to it?
We just did if anybody's into comedy, we just did one about comedy, and it's just like we threw out a lot of classics, but I felt there were some good deep cuts in there. Like I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have listened to Rodney Dangerfield. You know who he is, but unless you're looking up YouTube videos, you don't have any idea exactly how funny he is. Or Mitch Hedberg is a well-known name, but I feel like a lot of those guys are starting to get lost, especially with the huge influx of Netflix specials and
Mhm.
YouTube specials. What about you,
TikTok
Dave?
full of Matt Rife.
Yeah. I don't know. The one that we did on Loch Ness was pretty good, I thought. Also,
It was a lot similar to this episode in that there was some kooky stuff going on, and then a lot of the things you think would be there, seeing monsters and stuff. There was a lot of like more logical things around it.
Mm-hmm.
I like debunking stuff. Kinda.
Yeah, but like the underwater civilization in this episode, there were like kind of kooky stuffs just outside of the lock itself.
You guys' haunted cemetery episode. I have that downloaded ready to listen to because I love haunted cemeteries. Never understood why they're haunted. But I have quite a few under my belt to pictures of a few that I've been to, but also like a lot that I've heard of that are haunted. But people die in hospitals, not cemeteries.
Well, yeah, that's true. I never considered that.
But how was your guys' cemetery episode?
I felt like we found a lot of local stuff.
We find a lot of stuff in like Illinois, because for some reason they have at least 2 that are like the most haunted in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dave had a pretty good haunted cemetery story himself, which I liked.
So yeah, Paranatural people, head over, listen to it.
Yeah, because we have one that's probably like 3 hours away that I drove out to check out. So I like that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah.
It was so great to see you guys and talk to you again.
Hey, you guys too. Awesome Friendsgiving episode, fellas.
Hell yeah, cheers to that. Now I got to go get another beer.
Same.
All right, everybody. Thank you so very much for joining us on the Paranatural Podcast. Thanks again to Matt and Dave for having us on their show or coming on our show. I'm not really sure how you... for doing an episode with us. How about that? Hey, the holidays are coming up, so just a quick reminder to everybody, stay safe out there. If you drink, don't drive, all right?
If you drink, don't Ouija.
Yeah, that too. As always, we thank you so much for listening to us, for all your support and everything you do. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to tell a friend. That's the fastest way to bring new people in and get us through and make us bigger and do all that good stuff. Until next time, we love you. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, Matt and Dave. It was a blast. Let's do it again sometime. I had a beer. It was good. Good night. Love you guys.